Peekaboo. All right, guys. So we're going to be doing the Q&A answer video. I posted maybe a week or two ago. Post your questions, and I got a good little handful of questions. So I narrowed it down to just a few because I got a few questions that were quite similar to each other. So I kind of wanted to get to the core of the questions, the curiosity, and answer those. So I want to thank everyone who asked questions, first of all, and let's just jump straight into it. So the first question, and to me one of the most interesting that I did not expect, was I was asked by, I think it was Take the Curse Off the Washing Machine. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was him, who said that they were born and raised in New York, and they visited LA, but they, always thought it might have been a cool place to grow up. So they asked for some good memories of growing up in LA. And, everywhere has pros and cons. That's just the nature of the beast, But I have so many great memories growing up in LA. I think the biggest thing of LA, to me, of what's beautiful about it, is people are like, oh, it's the LA culture, as if there's one culture. There's really not. Like, there is a vibe to it, for sure, like a general idea of a culture, which, and that even depends on where you're at. Like, if you're in a black neighborhood, the culture is going to be completely different than, Mexican neighborhood. That's just how it is. That to say, there is a culture and a group of like-minded people for everyone there. It's just like such a melting pot of every kind of person you could possibly imagine, to the point where I don't, you could probably be like a guy who wants to hang out with other Filipino guys who are into Beyblades, and you'll probably find like a good solid group of people who are exactly like you, who like Beyblades. That's just how it is there. So I would say that's the biggest strength that it has overall. So specifically, I think at least the two memories to me that are the best, or at least stand out as the best for my childhood, are, first of all, and these are ones that I'm going to try to make unique to where I grew up. So the first one is my brother and I, every Monday and a lot of Wednesdays, when we were teenagers, for like a good span of time, would ride our bikes to the beach, which sounds like a small task. It was not. So we lived at the time in Whittier, California. So you can Google that, specifically on the corner of Newland and Bailey, in apartment J. Because my parents don't live there anymore, so I can tell you about it. They've been gone from there for years. But so I can be specific. But yeah, so it's like, 50, 60 mile round trip ride from there to, we usually go to like Seal Beach. From there to Seal Beach, because that was just our favorite spot. So we did that, one or two times a week for years. And all the adventures that we had doing that together, like, it's indescribable. Like, how many stories that I have. I could probably make a 3-hour video just talking about stories from our trips, our bike rides together to the beach. But not only is it a core memory I'll always have, like, just going with my brother and having adventures, but it really instilled in me the love of adventuring. And I think that is a huge part. Like, for me and my brother, we were both teenagers, or actually he might have been 20. I think I was 18, but he finished pastor school, and he's a pastor, by the way, for those of you who don't know. Got his like doctorate, the whole thing, real legit, like, unlike me. I'm just a Christian, one of those dirty, filthy ones that never went to school. But he finished pastor school, and what happened afterwards is different places will kind of, be notified, here's the graduating class, and if you're interested in any of them, here's a short video about them from the school. And yeah, so he got flown around a little bit. We went to San Francisco to check that out. We went to, I think he went to one in Washington that I did not go to with him. and then we went to one in Oregon. And that is how we ended up moving here. We just showed up. We both felt called by God that we were supposed to be there, and we left. Me, him, his somewhat new wife, and their dog all headed up there, drove up in a U-Haul, and yeah, it was just, an amazing adventure that led to me meeting my wife, starting a family here, him starting a church here, after working for that other church. And yeah, it's just, my life would never have been the same if I did not make the decision to do that, to follow God. We really felt that God called us to be here. And I think the root of that was those bike rides to the beach. Like, we were not afraid at all to really adventure out and do things that were out of our comfort zone, like moving away from home with zero prospects whatsoever. Because of all those adventures we had as kids, we just knew that if we had each other, we could figure it out, no matter what happened. If it was anything from crackheads to being so freaking broke that you just rode 60 miles, one of us is about to pass out and the other one has to carry him to a Del Taco, where we scrape together our physical change to buy a burrito so we get some calories in him and gets rehydrated. Like, no matter what situation we're in, if we had each other, we knew we'd be okay. And I firmly believe either of us would have followed God if we were told to separately, but I really think he put us together for a reason and made us brothers for a reason. And I think a big part of that reason was moving to Oregon at such a young age and really getting to establish ourselves, starting as children, in this area, because now it's, God's work that he's done, through us and with us in this area has been huge and such a blessing in our lives. And I started a whole new career. I worked at a movie theater and did like musical gigs and was dabbling with the idea of being a tattoo artist. Like, I was just a kid and, jumping around doing shit. I did not have a set path. And when I moved up here, I started working fast food restaurants, and that led into taking a caretaking position at an adult foster home for like disabled people, quadriplegics, that kind of thing. And I loved it. And then I went to school. So you clearly see God's hand in that. So yeah, there's one, and I'll hit you with one more. So there's a YMCA down the street, probably like, so it was 2 blocks, 1 block and then 1 block from that house on Newland and Bailey Street. And there was just an amazing lifting culture there. So as teenagers, we would go there just about every day. You finish up school, go over there, and we made friends. We fell into a really cool crowd of other guys who were into basketball, just playing pickup games for like, 5-6 hours a day, just playing basketball over and over and over again. And it was super fun, but I'm not tall. I'm like, like 5'8", close to 5'9". So, and I'm not very good at basketball. So he was not only better at basketball than I was, but he also is taller. He's like 6 foot, 6'1". So he had a better time at it. So eventually I decided, this isn't my thing anymore. I'm going to go get into lifting, right? And at that YMCA, the really cool thing about it was I fell into a super cool, like, hardcore group of lifters. So from the start, I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to go figure this stuff out, right? So I just started lifting weights. I was like this weak little kid. And, and I noticed that there was a subculture there, right? Like all these videos where you see guys talking about, this was like this lifting gym, and that's why I got like really into lifting. Like, that was mine. Like, there were just these guys who were fucking huge, like power lifters, bodybuilders. Like, there was just a solid internal group of guys. And they were the kind, like, they would not, if you walked up and asked for a spot, they would not even respond to you until you were in their respect. And I was a punk ass kid. I didn't deserve anyone's respect. There was nothing respectable about me. So I lifted there for about a year, and through that time it became like I would say hi, they would say hi back, that kind of a thing. And then probably around that year mark of going there every day and putting in, an hour or two of just gung-ho lifting, going for broke every single set for hours, I earned their respect. And I was like led into the group, and I just had, a great group of guys I would lift with every day. My main, gym partner was this guy named Jesse, just tall, jacked, and lean dude. He was, I think his actual main job was being a bartender in like Hollywood, LA area. And I know he also was a bouncer for a period of time. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I have a distinct memory of him also getting into stripping for a period of time. So just a wild dude. But yeah, so he was like my guy. Like, we were like super tight. He taught me so much about lifting, just the camaraderie there. Like, I remember one time this guy came in. There was a bottle next to a leg press that I wanted to jump on. So I gave the courtesy like 10, 15 minutes. No one was there. So I thought, fuck it. Someone left a bottle behind. So I just moved the bottle slightly to the side. And it was one of those leg presses where you're sitting down in it and pushing almost vertically up. And your ass is like basically a few inches above the ground in that sitting position. So I was laying in that leg press mid-set when this dude who was not part of the group, just super jacked, clearly steroided out dude, came in and started letting loose. Scared the shit out of me. I legitimately thought, oh, this is it. This is how I die. I used the fucking leg press of Juicehead McGee, and this is it. He's just gonna rip my fucking head off. And it was really funny to see the reaction. Not only did everyone stop their sets, but so I'm still laying down and looking at this developing over me, where this guy's yelling at me, and he starts to notice that there's 3 or 4 guys in the lifting space that have not only stopped their sets, they are locking eyes with this whole situation with him. Jesse stopped his set specifically, came over there and just started, challenging him, being like, what's up, bro? He took the set, you're not doing shit, like, getting on his ass. And just that sense of community and that sense of accomplishment of like, I came in here, I started working out, I've been doing it for, a good span of time, and I've seen notable results. I went from, a fat kid to someone who people on the street would be like, damn, you lift weights. I made that jump. And that instilled me forever with a love of lifting, just a love of physical culture, and on some level, a love of lifting culture. Like, not necessarily like this influencer culture like there is now, but a love of the lifting culture that you'll find in gyms, like in really good gyms. Like, someone shows up, everyone's, kicking their own ass, people are giving each other spot, everyone's pretty cool, you don't have a water bottle, someone will, give you something. It's just that kind of lifting camaraderie of everyone, just a self-improvement from top to bottom. And that really just, made me a lifetime lifter and realized the great value that could be found in lifting heavy ass weights. So again, I didn't mean to make a whole video just about this, but 13 minutes in, here we go. One question down. So I'll only answer a few. So the next one is, what was my first watch? I don't remember. I believe it to be this like dive style shitty watch from Walmart that it had like a bezel on it, but it wasn't a dive bezel. It was like just a stainless steel plate with like the numbers 1 through 12 on it. With like a green dial. That's the reason I liked it, why I picked it, with like this almost like Hawaiian pattern, like floral-ish pattern going. That was just very, very cool. And it had a strap on it that was like kind of a NATO style Velcro strap. I wish I could find it. I tried to find, before recording this video, a photo of it so I could like, hyperimpose it, but I couldn't find it. So that's my first watch, and yeah, it did not necessarily instill me with a love for watches. It's just the first watch I remember having. Now, the next question was, what made you get into watches? So this is kind of twofold. So the first time so I was a person who always, or I'll say never, liked having things on my wrists, like my forearms. And that may be because of, sometimes when you grow up in an area that's not necessarily like a really nice area, you end up being in, some violent situations, and that, would happen from time to time. And because of those situations, I always knew two things. One, I didn't want anything on my arms, anything that someone could grab my arm and use it to, retain my arm, to have control of my arm. I just knew that was a bad thing. And, always be aware of my surroundings. So I was the guy, even if I was wearing a long sleeve, I was like pushing that shit all the way up. I didn't like watches. I didn't like anything that could be used against me, if violence happens. And then I got into working at that adult care facility. And when I started there, you're passing meds, you're doing things at a certain time. I realized I need a watch. So I, went to Walmart, got, some bullshit watch. And I don't even remember what it looked like because it broke. But anyways, after it broke, I looked online. What's a watch that won't break on me? And of course, G-Shock, right? You could have guessed it. Jim Kincaid, just started commenting, hell yeah, brother. And so I got the 5600 because I was like, hey, this is a G-Shock. This is like indestructible and I can afford it. This is awesome, right? It's $50. So I got that watch. And that watch really kicked off my love for watches, because it was like, not only is this a tool that I can use, but this is fun. Like, there's like an aspect of this that's like collecting. There's like an aspect of this that's like kind of fucking nerdy that I got really into, right? I was like, okay, this is something that I'm into now. And then from there, I started getting into other watches and, looking into, how watches work and, a lot of this other stuff that we're all, very fucking nerdy about. And then the last question that I got was, did you get into watches because there was someone influential in your life that was into watches? Which is a valid question. I think there's a lot of people who get into watches because, like, their dad always wore a watch, so then they wear a watch, So, yes and no. I did not get into watches because anyone wore watches. I already told you why I bought the first watch for myself as an adult. But I definitely do remember my father as well as my grandfather wearing watches. I remember my dad I couldn't tell you what watch it is exactly, but he had a few watches, and I remember one of them, imagine like a Casio Duro kind of watch, but it had, Marvin the Martian, I think. It's probably Melvin or some shit. Whatever. The Martian, the Looney Tunes Martian. It had the Looney Tunes Martian on it. And I always thought that was super cool, and I liked the bracelet, how the silver bracelet looked, which clearly has impacted my taste in watches now. And I remember my grandfather had a huge watch collection, just a ton of them. So did that make me want to wear watches? Clearly not enough, because I didn't wear them until I needed them for work. But I can say that it did influence me towards my taste in watches. I think a lot of the watches that I'm into now are very reminiscent of the watches that I saw them have.
And before we go, I just want to remind you that Jesus Christ loves you. If you do not believe in him, then I strongly encourage you to tell him that. Challenge him. See what happens. I guarantee you, if you say, hey God, I don't believe you exist, prove it to me, that he will show you in some way. Anything from him showing up in the room to talk to you, or, the next day someone at work coming up and being like, hey, God told me to say that I'm real and I love you. Something will happen. So give it a try. Put him to the test. And if he really doesn't exist, nothing will happen. You can continue on with your life as you are now. But I'd bet my life that something will happen and your life will be changed forever. Have a great day, guys.